Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to be testing out long-form audio generation with the VibeVoice AI model. This is a text-to-speech model that Microsoft released recently. It's apparently made for doing like multi-person dialogue, like a podcast. I think it can do like 4 independent voices or something like that. It also does voice cloning, so I wanted to see how that works as well. So what I ended up doing was cloning my own voice out of convenience and using a previous voice that I have for my robot, which you might have seen elsewhere on this channel. So what follows is going to be a conversation between my cloned voice and my robot's voice. And you know that thing where you hear the sound of your own voice recorded and it sounds really weird to you? This feels like that, but like twice as bad. Well, you might be wondering why there's a painting being done in the background at the moment. This is a painting I did a few years ago. I thought I would have Microsoft Copilot generate a long dialogue about the fascinating world of water-soluble oil paints. These are the actual paints that I tend to use when I do painting, so I do have some familiarity with them. Anyway, I thought it would make a good subject for a sort of a long, rambling podcast dialogue to test this out. So what I ended up generating here is exactly that. It's sort of this long, rambling, but basically accurate dialogue. I wasn't really that concerned with the details, honestly. I just wanted to see how the model handled the dialogue, if it started to speed up or we got like audio distortion or, well, who knows, right? I wanted to see what would happen. And I thought running it over some old oil painting would be a bit of fun. So without any further introduction, here's the output of the model. Both voices are cloned from about 40 seconds of material. Here we go.
So, you were saying you're thinking about trying water-miscible oils? What sparked your interest?
I was reading an article about reducing toxins in the studio, and it kept coming up as a good alternative to traditional oil painting. Less solvent fumes, easier cleanup. It sounded appealing.
That's a common reason people switch. It's definitely a big plus for health and environmental concerns. You're not alone. When they first came out, I thought it was sacrilege! Oil painting is oil painting, right? Linseed oil, turpentine, the whole tradition. The idea of adding water felt like a betrayal.
Exactly! That's how I feel. My instructor barely touched on them, said they were a compromise. But I'm trying to reduce solvent use, and it seems like a good option.
That was my turning point, honestly. The fumes, the disposal of solvents, it adds up. And truthfully, once you get past that initial mental block, they're surprisingly versatile.
So how did this even happen? Was someone just messing around in a lab one day?
Pretty much. The idea dates back surprisingly far. There were attempts as early as the 19th century to make oil paints water soluble, but they weren't very successful. The paint was unstable, didn't handle well. The real breakthrough came with Winsor and Newton in the late 80s, early 90s. They developed a process of modifying the oil molecules themselves, adding polar groups that allow them to be dispersed in water.
Dispersed? Not dissolved? Is there a difference?
Huge difference! Dissolving means the oil actually breaks down and becomes part of the water. Dispersing is more like tiny droplets of oil suspended in the water, held stable by emulsifiers. That's why you still need to use mediums. They help maintain that suspension. It's a complex chemistry.
Okay, so it's not just adding water and hoping for the best.
Definitely not.
Let's say I want to start. What do I need beyond the paints themselves?
You'll still want mediums, but they're different than traditional ones. Look for water-miscible oil mediums, linseed oil medium, alkyd medium, stand oil medium, all available in water-miscible versions. And you need a good quality brush cleaner specifically designed for water-miscible oils. Regular soap and water won't cut it.
Why not?
Because the paint is still oil. The emulsifiers help, but they're not magic. You need something to break down that oily residue in the bristles. And you'll want 2 buckets of water, one for initial rinsing and a second with clean water for final cleaning.
2 buckets. Okay, noted. What about brushes? Can I use my regular oil painting brushes?
You can, but I recommend dedicating some to water-miscible oils. They tend to be softer bristles, and the constant water exposure can wear down your good quality hog bristle brushes faster. Synthetic brushes work really well too.
How does it feel different to paint with? I've heard it dries faster.
It does dry noticeably faster, especially in thinner layers. That's because the water evaporates, speeding up oxidation. But it doesn't necessarily mean you can't work wet into wet. You just need to be a little more mindful of your layering.
So glazing is still possible?
Absolutely! In fact, some people find it easier because the paint flows so smoothly with water. Blending is also fantastic. You can use a damp brush or even a soft cloth to create really subtle transitions. Impasto is trickier.
Trickier how?
Because the paint doesn't have the same body as traditional oils. It tends to slump more easily. You need to build up layers gradually and use mediums that add thickness, like alkali gel medium.
Okay, so it sounds good for blending and glazing. What are the downsides? What's the compromise my instructor was talking about?
The biggest con is color shift. As the water evaporates, the paint film can change slightly in value and saturation. It's subtle, but noticeable if you're very precise with your colors. You learn to compensate for it over time.
Color shift? That sounds frustrating.
It is at first. Another thing is the handling isn't exactly the same as traditional oils. It can feel a bit more slippery, less tactile. But honestly, I think the pros outweigh the cons for many people. Reduced solvent use is huge, easier cleanup, faster drying times.
What about archival quality? Is it as durable as regular oil paint?
That was a big concern initially, but modern formulations are very stable. They've been tested extensively and are considered to be just as archival as traditional oils when used correctly.
Okay, let's say I mess up. What are some common problems people run into with water-miscible oils?
One of the biggest is beading. If you add too much water at once, the paint can separate and form little beads on the canvas.
Oh no! How do you fix that?
Add a tiny bit more medium. It helps re-emulsify the paint. Don't overwork it though, or you'll just make things worse. Another problem is cracking. This usually happens if you apply thick layers of water-miscible oil over thin layers of traditional oil.
So layering order matters?
Absolutely! Always work fat over lean, meaning more oil content on top of less oil content. Water-miscible oils are generally leaner than traditional oils, so they should go over the traditional oil if you're mixing them. And avoid applying very thick layers directly to a bare canvas. Use an imprimatura or underpainting first.
Imprimatura? Another thing to learn. What about mold? I've heard water can encourage mold growth.
It can, especially in humid environments. Make sure your studio is well ventilated and don't leave wet paintings sitting around for too long. A small amount of fungicide added to the water can help prevent mold.
Can you mix traditional oils and water-miscible oils? I have a lot of colors already in regular oil paint.
You can, but it's tricky. As we talked about, layering order is crucial. You can add a small amount of water-miscible medium to your traditional oils to make them compatible, but don't go overboard. And be aware that the drying times will be affected. The traditional oil will dry slower.
So it's not ideal for blending across both types?
Not really. It's better to keep them separate within a single layer if possible. I often use water-miscible oils for underpainting and glazing, then switch back to traditional oils for the final layers.
That sounds like a good compromise.
It is a learning curve, but it's worth it if you're looking for a more environmentally friendly and convenient way to paint with oils. Don't be afraid to experiment.
Any resources you recommend? Books or websites?
Winsor & Newton has some great information on their website. There are also several YouTube tutorials that demonstrate different techniques. Just search for water-miscible oil painting. And honestly, the best way to learn is just to get in there and try it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you figure things out.